Good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Rami El-Samahi. I'm a principal at Over Under. I'll introduce the rest of the team in a moment. We're going to go through very quick introductions, hopefully even less than 10 minutes, and then really spend the time on two exercises. It's really the same exercise twice with different pieces. And then just sort of we'll share out at the end of each one and then talk about briefly next steps. Intros, if you've been here before, you know about this group. We were hired in April of 22, I believe. Is that right? Is it really? 23. Time has... to help the town with the sort of what is called a master plan update. As most of you probably know, this is something that the Commonwealth requires of municipalities to do on a periodic basis throughout, every 10 years-ish. I think it's been a little longer in many places, including Lunenburg. We have a great team. I'm very lucky to work with the folks in my office. Brett Pearson, who his wife is expecting any minute now, so can't join us today. And Tristan Seawright as well. Tristan is an architect and an urban designer, very interested in community engagement. Brett is a graphic designer extraordinaire, so all of the work you've seen, this presentation, the website, the existing conditions report, and the final is really spearheaded by Brett. We have other members of the team periodically, the folks who built the model of the town, as well as other urban designers and architects on our team. We're also joined by RKG. Eric Halverson is here tonight. RKG do a lot of planning. Their special expertise is in kind of economic planning, and that's we're very fortunate to have them on this project. We've had the pleasure of working on several other projects together. And on this project, they're sort of covering the economic development, the municipal facilities, the transportation, and the housing components, all of which are sort of very directly involved in sort of economic planning. Also with us, or in spirit, but on the team, is Emily Innes and Innes Associates, and their real expertise is in land use and zoning. So when all is said and done and we sort of come up with a set of final recommendations, Emily and her team will they've already done an analysis of the existing zoning, but they'll be looking at the recommendations that we as a collective arrive at and determine what, if anything, needs to change in your current zoning to sort of get to that point. And sometimes zoning changes are required. So that's the team. We've been working on this master plan. Really, we're not leading it. We're sort of leading the communal effort, but so much of where we are is a result of fairly involved community engagement over the last 18 months. This is the 5th community meeting. We've had regular steering committee meetings until the summer, and hopefully those will sort of come back online soon. We continue to engage with the broader public. We currently have the 3rd survey out online, and we have, as of this morning, 186 responses, which is pretty good for a town your size. And it's not an easy survey to take. There's quite a lot of questions and thinking that is required. So good on you, Lunenburg, for responding. We see it, our role really is to help shape that vision, both kind of by creating the mechanism to get to from identifying a series of goals to a long list of recommendations to then the short list of recommendations that will make it into the final report. But really it's and also lending our own sort of experience to what's worked and what has been a challenge for other communities. But really it's been truly a community-driven process. Loosely, so yeah, we began in May with a discovery phase. We're on the tail end of sort of the recommendation. We have a long list of recommendations. I'd say we're now kind of through the survey, through meetings like these, through discussions and feedback from the steering committee, and through our own expertise as things that have worked and not worked in other communities, we'll sort of take that long list and boil it down, condense it to a short list. So tonight is part of that process, and we're hopefully close to the end of that process. And then from now into the spring is creating the report, the master plan report. First the draft, and then the final report. So that will have in it sort of the existing conditions, the short list of recommendations, and then a very important section on implementation, right? Sort of what the roadmap looks like to get to arrive at some of the recommendations that are being proposed. Any questions so far? So one of the first tasks we did in that discovery phase was through a lot of public input, arrive at a series of 8 goals that sort of shaped the community. These were things that there was quite clear consensus on. So with respect to housing, support a range of housing options for ages and income levels, protect farmland, that your sort of agrarian roots and current reality are something that as a town you hold dear. It's part of the reason people moved here in many regards, and that's something that you hold important as a goal moving forward. Small business development in particular, it was something that we heard come up again and again. Enhance and improve your natural open spaces as in recreational opportunities within them. Support community gathering spaces, so that's different than sort of open spaces. These are more like plazas, town greens, that sort of thing. Optimize the use of your municipal buildings and properties, and that's something that we've heard again and again, and there seems to be some movement on some of those things. Your school system is unsurprisingly of great pride and importance to the community. And then the last one is sort of fostering a safe and resilient town infrastructure, and this is a little less clear, I think, as a goal, but how to make sure that your infrastructure is both working and will continue to work, and is done in a way that anticipates some of the climate changing climate conditions that inevitably are a part of our future. Whether it's intense temperature swings, or flooding, which has been an issue, if not for Lunenburg specifically, certainly in adjacent communities, and ice storms and other sort of intense inclement weather, but also things like your sewer system, where there is a communal sewer system and where there isn't, and how to plan for these things as you move forward. Any questions about these 8 goals? From those 8 goals, and over a course of many months, we had a series of discussions, surveys. The last 2 meetings in particular, were opportunities for people to make suggestions, recommendations of things that could happen. I won't go into each of these now, but this is one of 8 examples of suggestions that were made that support this goal, right? So, for example, provide tax relief for homeowners who are over the age of 65, or use town-owned land to develop affordable housing, or create a first-time home buyer program. Now, these are a lot of different types of recommendations. They all, in some way, reflect this goal. This is a long list. We added some ourselves that we know have worked in other communities. And we don't expect all of these to be universally approved by everybody in the town. I think that's a tall order for almost anything except free candy. But what we want to do, and what we've been doing, is trying to understand what are important, what are the most important of these goals what are the most important of these recommendations for this town, and to try to create a shorter list as a result of that. So I won't go through each of these, but you'll see here there's quite a few. What's the total number? 106? Yeah. Different recommendations. Obviously, that's not going to be the entire, that's too many. And some of them, frankly, are at odds with one another. So we couldn't do them all. And there are a few, frankly, that we might not propose. And we will, I think, won't be shy about telling you that that's probably an unlikely scenario for your town. But up until this point, we haven't cut anything, because that's kind of counter to the open process that we've been trying to foster. What we would like to do, so are there any questions about what I've proposed? Yes, sir.
I don't see anybody here from the Board of Selectmen. I don't recognize half the people on the zoning board, but I don't see any of them. And I like the way you're doing this, because they're going to watch your video. And you don't have to put up with them asking questions now. They can submit them in writing in the future. So you had a good plan here. I don't know how you worked it out to be at the night where nobody's going to come here.
Well, that wasn't by design. But we have had selectmen at meetings in the past. And obviously, the report has to, we will at one point have to go before the board and the planning board. We've been in pretty constant touch with representatives of the planning board, and there is a committee, a steering master plan steering committee that has been engaged throughout the process as well.
Now I'm going to ask a senior question.
Sure.
See, I haven't been paying attention for many years. Lunenburg still has a residential, for the most part, 2-acre minimum lot requirement?
So in much of the town, it's my understanding that that's the case. There are exceptions, obviously, where there are multi-unit developments, but as of right, it's 2 acres, or is it 1?
Most of the town is currently, at least most of the residences.
Right.
Land area, I don't know off the top of my head. Most of the town is under a 1-acre minimum lot size. Now, we do have some sections of town that are smaller minimum lot size, and Residence B, I think, is an acre and a half?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I want to say that's 40,000 square feet being a Lunenburg acre, because when in doubt, round. But
And between residence A and residence B, that's, what is this, like 80% of the?
Easily, yeah.
80% of your housing.
Well, thanks for bringing me up to speed. I'll probably forget it.
But that's one of the questions, right? You know, should the minimums be made smaller? That was a suggestion, for example.
I think that really depends on the location. I don't know, I tend to say a case-by-case basis in many instances.
It's one of these things that if you zone an area in a certain way, right, then as of right you have the ability to do that. But if you want to do anything different than that, you would need a variance to do it. So do you want to allow folks as of right in certain parts of town to build on smaller parcels, or how, right? It would make it easier for them to do so.
In the
Because,
current circumstances, and the cost of housing for the younger people, yes, I think you got to put a lot of thought into that.
so that's one of the things that's come up. There are cons to that as well, right? And we've heard some of those. And this is just one example that I'm bringing up as in response to your question. So what I'd like to do tonight, I mean, because we are such a small group, I think we could probably do this in one group. If you think we need to do two, we could do two, but I don't think that's necessary. Is to gather together around the table. Maybe we could use one of these coffee tables even and stay in the comfortable chairs. We have a series of playing cards. Each one is, I think I have a, so we have 8 stacks of cards. For the first exercise, we'll give you half of those cards. And in each stack, they speak to one of the particular goals. Each card looks like this. On the front, there's an image and the recommendation. On the back side is a little bit of a description of the card, of the recommendation, the goal of the recommendation, and then a couple of useful graphics on the bottom. One gives you a sense of whether, in terms of your time frame, whether it's a short, if it's got 2 clocks, it's a medium time frame. 3, it's a longer term time frame. And then cost to be low cost, medium cost, and a higher cost. And then the last one is possible funding streams. So obviously both the time and the cost are sort of rough order of magnitude. I mean, we can, let's say, and we've been thinking of time as sort of 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and then 5 to 15 years. And in terms of cost, anything with $1 sign is sort of under 50,000, 50 to 200,000, and then above. And those are sort of rough. But I think it's sort of useful to have that information as a way to at least begin to have a conversation amongst ourselves. And I think we see our role for the next hour. There'll be this session and then another session with the other half of the cards as a way to, we'll just be around to answer questions for you as they arise. The goal of the exercise is to answer 2 questions for each of the recommendations. Is this strategy important, right? Is this of value to you as individually, to your community? And is the strategy critical, right? It can be, and by critical we mean, is this something that needs to be addressed sooner than later, right? So there's a element of time and urgency. It can be just one of these. It can be both, right? this is very important and very critical. I would imagine that that's usually, if something is super critical, you probably also think it's super important, but it's useful, we had this discussion amongst ourselves and arrived at using this sort of time for, matrix. We have a playing board with these kind of 6 options, and as a group, we're asking you to have a bit of a discussion and then start to place the cards on the board. If it's very important and very critical, it would land in this square. If it's not important and not critical, please put it there. Those are should be the 2 easiest. And then if it's somewhat important, but also critical and from a time perspective, put it here. The further you move it up to this corner, the more important and the more critical it is. The further you move it down to this corner, the less important, the less critical. Yes.
What would be your definition or criteria to say that something is critical versus not?
I mean, I would say, is it something that you deem as a priority that should be done soon?
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Any other questions?
Is the goal for us to agree before putting the card on the board?
Yeah, I mean, you can play it any way you'd like. You can start by saying, I think it should be here, and then see how it goes. I think lively discussions are healthy. I would say, and I don't think I need to say this in this group, but always be respectful and civil to one another, please, because that is helpful. But I've never really had to remind anybody to do that in Lunenburg. So. But yeah, so I think we can play by ear. We're a tiny group. I think it's all right to do. So let's.
Should we set up around the center table here? We can get some seats.
If you'd like, the lamps don't move.
Oh,
But
They don't.
that seems more difficult.
Or they might, but it would take.
they would move once.
We don't want to break them.
Maybe, yeah.
Put it in the middle.
Yeah.
Small enough.
Yeah. Can we gather around this one? Tris, why don't you grab four round. Tristan has 4 groups. Actually, why don't you give each participant? Yeah, you can start by reading through quickly. Small business development, housing, schools.
Sure.
And you can you can trade if you'd like.
So would you like us to kind of have people go one at a time, say, I think this belongs here, or would it be better if they kind of placed and we discuss as we go? What do you envision being the most efficient way or appropriate way for this group to engage?
I'm very open to however it works. I think there's going to be some amount of digestion of the cards first, so maybe a few minutes of just kind of processing what you have, and then if you feel something, if you feel the urge, lay a card down, and we can go from there. We have roughly half an hour for each session. That should put us in good stead. Yeah.
So there's no consideration here to feasibility, say financial feasibility, we're just
No, I mean, that's the...
keeping an open mind and
budget,
kind of.
the budget sort of suggests how much this particular recommendation would cost the community, but, and, we have, and that's part of why I've asked Eric to be here tonight, is you've got some clear ideas about feasibility and what's more realistic than other opportunities. And I should, just again make clear that we're not going, it's not as simple as whatever is laid out tonight will be the short list, right? This is one of many means of arriving at that short list.
And the images on the front are really just to give the strategies an identity and a guide. They're not suggesting something specific that will happen.
So where it says more small housing, it wouldn't have to look like that particular image.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Right.
Love it.
As people sort of review these, I'm thinking, because it's such a small but intimate group, and we're going to get good input directly from that, but is there a way online that we could expand this exercise to allow people, after looking at the presentation, to provide additional input? I'm just thinking that might be useful since we didn't really get such a high turnout.
It's essentially a version of the online survey.
Okay.
All the recommendations, and I'm trying to get online to just
Yeah,
show
we
you
don't
what
have to
that
get
looks like.
deep into it, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if that's practical or something we could try after the fact.
Do it.
Here we go.
You're gonna start us off?
No, I just need the table to.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was
I
ready.
I've got a
There's
handful
gotta be
already.
something very critical that's gonna go down any moment now. Takes a little more thought sometimes than you thought it would. Yeah.
Quite a few.
Should we are we doing them just one subject at a time?
No.
Oh, we can go with-
No, please help get started.
I think it would be good to just do them and then kind of look at
Talk
the
about it, yeah.
really important, really critical, and see if we have any common interests in those. And same with the, not very important, not very
Nope.
critical, and if anyone disagrees, it might be a good way to put some aside and minimize.
Yeah.
I need more info to understand that better, I think.
Housing?
Oh, yeah.
Just in like very plain terms.
Yeah,
like-
so let's say somebody proposed to build, I'll just make it a round number, 100 apartments.
Mhm.
If you have a zoning regulation, it's called, often it's called inclusionary zoning. The town might say, okay, developer or property owner, if you want to build that 100 units, you have to set aside, let's say 10% of the 100 units or 10 units to be deed restricted affordable
Okay.
to households that don't meet or exceed a certain
Got it,
income.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Would that be a way of semi-proactively aiming towards that 40B
40B,
requirement?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great, makes
Yeah.
sense.
You wouldn't lose any ground
Yeah.
in that scenario.
But you wouldn't gain any either, so.
Right.
Yeah, so you know, a lot of communities will set it at like 12.5% or 15%, so that with each new development, you're gaining units toward your 40B percentage.
Mhm.
So then I have a follow-up question. The one that says use town-owned land to develop affordable housing, so in this scenario, is it not town-owned land?
No,
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would
Market
be,
rate developer
Okay.
driven.
So you can zone in ways that, one of the neat things about zoning is you can zone in ways that encourage the kinds of development you want.
Okay.
For example, if we were going on what some would call more extreme side, if we felt there were enough single-family homes and a deep enough need for more housing in Lunenburg, I'm not necessarily encouraging this, but just like one option out there is you make single-family homes by special permit, so you just kind of need a little more justification there, whereas multifamily homes would be by right and easier to develop.
In general, anything by right means you don't have to ask for special permission to do it. You can
Yeah.
just, you go through the regular channels.
Okay.
When it comes to the planning board, it's basically a list of check boxes. Do you meet the check boxes? If you do,
If
great.
not, then you make the zoning board do their job.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you have to go before the zoning board of appeals
Yeah.
and.
The best job in the world, you get to break the law and make people happy.
I hear Robin Hood has a similar job.
Yeah. Oh, I should have gotten it right.
Most 40B developers are not Robin Hood type of characters.
So I've got a stack of cards here talking about community events, and they all say the same thing differently. So my attitude is to take this pile and put it in one spot.
Makes sense.
And
Hopefully
And
it's
I think-
important and critical.
I think they ought to be, well, I think it's very important that we have community events. And I'll put that in the somewhat pile, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is a thoughtful group, because I've gone through these exercises in other places. Everything's very important and very critical.
I've told you I like this town. We're lucky.
Well, I think also knowing that we have to, now that we're at the point of narrowing down,
Yeah.
it makes it even more important not to put everything
Right.
in the important pile.
Some things will be very critical, but they just, practically speaking, can't be done
Yeah.
quickly,
Mhm.
or they're long horizon type of
Or
things.
economically,
Like, yeah, in
Mhm.
particular.
building a new septic system on my waterfront property.
We're sewering the whole town,
Oh, that's never gonna happen.
right, so.
They already did that, didn't
Besides, I
Don't
wouldn't
we
wanna
used to
have to
do
deal with those guys
Oh,
on the water and
no.
they?
sewer
Most of the
commission.
town.
Most of the town's
I'm
not
happy
so.
to be
It
an
used to,
independent.
though, right?
No.
You're happy the way things are?
Yep.
Okay, that's important too. The
We
do
just
nothing
switched
option.
from
Yeah.
sewer to-
Some parts of the town have sewer, but it is,
Huh.
the gross majority of the town does not
It's
have
just
the
town.
density to, I mean, Northfield Road is, for example, my stretch of Northfield Road is as developed as that part of town can be. Ain't no water, ain't no sewer, not under the
These are
impression
mine.
that's gonna change anytime soon.
Right.
Funny enough, I have an under-sink water filter being delivered shortly.
I have a pile of unknowns. I'm gonna pass them on to someone else.
I'll take a look at it.
Oh, there we go. Let's say pass it over.
I'm
Oh, no, I'm
struggling
handing
with
it to you.
making a
Oh, are
decision
you?
on the-
Yes.
You wanna
I mean,
switch?
you've got the
You wanna
same-
help me with that one then?
I do, but
Because these ones are like my kind of.
Technically not a
my-
member of the
it's
public
kind of
in
like
this
my
bit.
yes.
I
The other ones were
attempt
like my-
very,
Okay.
I am aware, because I'm board chair, that my voice kind of gets amplified
Sure.
by the seat I sit in. So I try to be very thoughtful about how much I contribute,
Sure.
because if I wanted to steamroll,
Because I was thinking this one, because this is just like easy, right? At least in my mind, not easy, right? Is anything ever easy?
But yeah, it's not.
I wanna know what's easy. This sounds
Like,
great.
But like,
Sounds like something that could happen.
like, it's just cheap too.
Nice.
You know, so cheap,
This is the
yeah.
This kind of goes
And
with
I'll,
my
I'll
other
tell you that alter existing bylaws and processes for opening businesses in Lunenburg is, there's a lot of community discussion about that right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
put that one in the middle.
this one in the middle, okay, encourage small businesses in the town center.
Matt,
Yeah,
question for
right?
you.
It's like a
I mean,
neutral
it's
one.
important
Allow people to
and critical,
purchase
but
land
not
and have temporary
encourage
dwelling
it
units
takes
on
some
site
time
while
to
building their
Right.
home. Would that count as an ADU?
No,
This one I
so,
feel like
short
we need
version,
to have all the other stuff happen
right now,
first
we
before
don't,
do
we
it.
don't allow
It's gonna be
trailers.
not critical.
Like, if we're gonna be real, like, again, I'm not
So-
speaking the
so this one here?
legalese,
Yeah.
that, whatever. Yeah, no trailers.
Gotcha.
So,
The
with,
statute
So then-
allows you to have a trailer
No, it
while
is,
you're
so it's
rebuilding
important.
your home
Oh, okay.
for
Yeah.
a limited period of time.
In the middle?
Okay.
and
Yeah.
while
Let's
you're,
say
gonna
as
say-
a-
Are you
Good
just
one.
rebuilding or
Good
like
one.
initial build?
Yeah.
as well?
just rebuilding.
Cause you need to.
So-
Okay, so
Like
this
an
would
act of-
expand it to say initial build as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
natural act
Yeah.
that destroys your home,
Yeah.
you're allowed to have temporary housing.
Okay.
so if Linz and I wanted to put in a tiny house for my mom, for example,
Yeah.
Work to get.
it would have to be,
Yeah, so then is that gonna be?
it couldn't just be like the tiny house like you see on tiny houses on HGTV or whatever. It has to be an actual,
So this was.
Structure.
Up to standards for a single family, but a
So,
Right,
mini version.
mm-hmm.
so but is it critical?
Makes
It's
sense.
not cri-
I don't think it
wouldn't
would be
say
critical.
Is it critical but important? So
On the
here-
other hand, if if my wife and I look at it and say, well, my mom's not, I wish my mom would be here forever, but odds are she will
You know what I mean?
not be here before I am. Might be something to be said about, maybe we could throw a double wide in the backyard, plumb it appropriately, but know that within 20 years, we're not gonna need it anymore and might wanna reclaim that land as opposed to, laying laying everything for a full
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah, but we need money.
the money before we decide.
Before we start fighting
Agreed.
over it. So I'm thinking this is here. Right?
The unoccupied, very critical but not important box is an interesting one.
It
Yeah,
seems
so-
difficult to figure out something that's not important, but you have to do it right.
Yeah.
I would give an example of that, actually.
Okay.
Our solar canopy bylaw
Okay,
that we
fair
passed
enough.
about a year ago, right?
Yep.
Is it important? No, the town can function fine without a solar
But we
canopy
need to
bylaw.
have those bylaws in place before somebody does things we don't want.
Yeah, or the canopy was even before grant money went away. So
that's
that
right.
businesses had the option to make use of all this federal money coming in. And I don't know if any have chosen to take advantage of it, but they flat out weren't gonna have that option
Yeah.
unless we did it.
Yeah.
And it's still then, it was critical
Good
importance.
example, yeah.
Somewhat.
I like it. I get where people might say, not that important.
Sure.
Yeah, it's all relative to the rest of things that you
Mhm.
can do.
That was,
This is the MBTA communities one. Use town-owned land to develop affordable housing.
not necessarily.
Oh, it's not?
No, so that, my understanding of that is that has come up from some discussions about, for example, the old primary school in the center of town.
Sure.
That, got demolished. I know some people, I'm guessing this is what it's related to, I've heard some people say, wouldn't it be great to put up a big old apartment block there, owned and managed by the town to ensure that prices were kept reasonable
Yeah.
and affordable in a location that might be a little more useful to people who might not have a car or anything, either due to age or income level. And there was some talk that maybe that is something that could be done. I don't know if that's exactly where that comes from, but that's discussion I heard at one of these meetings that would overlap
Sure.
in my mind.
It just on here, it talks about using public land to build housing in areas like near public transit. And I know
So
that's something we're.
if it's near public transit, it
Yeah.
would probably count, but
Yeah.
if it's not,
Yeah.
it
It's
would.
something we've been
It's-
discussing on the.
It's commonly done in a lot of communities like Lunenburg.
Yeah.
There are organizations, usually nonprofits, that partner with the community. And, you know, it has to be public disposition. Town meeting has to buy into it either through lease or an RFP that would then sell the property for that purpose exclusively. But there's a lot of projects that go on like that.
Yeah.
And to be frank, land comes out of, we don't even have to talk about existing land in that case, land comes out of chapter. But land that is under conservation or agricultural restriction, when it gets sold, can be, in certain circumstances, the town has first right of refusal. So rather than taking it out of that restriction and when it gets sold, the town can say, we're gonna take it out of restriction, but we're gonna buy it instead. And that would give us the, I mean, if that's something we wanted, then that would let us take the lead on development in that area, in that circumstance. Yeah, I'm not advocating any of these as a good idea. I'm not saying they're a bad idea. Haven't done that research, but thinking.
But thinking about that property there, at the old primary school site, number one, probably the best use is to develop some kind of housing there because it's close to, quote, the center of town. It's walkable. So I'm gonna say, can I just turn this card upside down for developing options for a green space at that place?
Here we go.
If you had an ashtray, I'd burn it, but.
So are we in a position that we want to
Yeah, I
start
think we
talking
should
about
start
some
to
of the
talk about
things?
some of these, yeah. I mean, specifically, like, I would start with the ones on the two opposite ends and
Great.
see if,
Do you need?
I'm happy to grab them and read through them with us if we
Okay.
want.
Yep.
Very critical, very important.
Yeah, very
Here we go.
critical. And it's okay to agree, it's okay to disagree, right? Focus commercial development in specific areas to increase activity and non-residential tax revenue. If we need more explanation of these, we can get into the back, but low time, low cost. Do we agree critical and important?
Seems like a simple
Yeah.
way to start.
I mean, are we essentially talking about better utilizing our commercially zoned?
And/or creating new zoning in areas that we deem appropriate, would be my reading of it.
Yeah.
Commercial is typically ground floor retail,
Okay.
professional office, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Medical offices, you know, services for residents to walk into.
I like it there, but.
Yeah.
Audit and alter existing bylaws and processes for opening a business in Lunenburg. The many small business owners finding the current process more labyrinthian than they would prefer. Low time, low cost.
I think that's very critical.
Mm.
I was here when you had a planning board that basically ignored small business until Walmart showed up and created the mountain.
Well, I hear the planning board these days is a bunch of jerks, and I don't know if I trust them. We're trying to not be that.
Yep,
Review and modify zoning barriers to business investment. Zoning regulations can be modified to help businesses. This could include changing parking requirements, smaller minimum lot sizes, etc. Do we like that as critical important? Very, very?
I think
Just
so,
saying
but
to audit it, right?
No, this is review and modify
Oh.
zoning barriers. So this would be looking at the barriers.
Audit. Okay.
The other one was audit, yeah. And potentially, if there's appropriate areas,
Yeah.
maybe commercial doesn't need to have an acre lot size or what, I don't even know what the current lot size is in commercial, but,
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Make the life
Another good
a little
starting
easier for the ZBA.
Bring in businesses that create well-paying jobs in existing industrial and commercial areas.
Sure.
more time, because businesses take more time to get going, low cost. I like taxes that I'm not paying. Upgrade school facilities to meet accessibility standards.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Turkey Hill.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
kind of
how
the
many,
law.
let's see, we have the high school, middle school, which should be at the current standard. I
So
think.
let's be more clear. This is talking about, I can't know what the individual, I've put my board hat on.
Yeah.
While I cannot know what the individuals who submitted this were thinking, they're talking about Turkey Hill.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
building that's 50 years
Yeah,
old
yeah.
However,
and,
primary school was built in 2005 and it still doesn't have a handicap accessible button to get in the doors.
Yeah.
Fair.
So
Really?
2005 was, I believe, just a few years before the regulation
Mhm.
went in. But, I mean, a parent in a wheelchair or in crutches or anything just
Yeah.
doesn't need someone to open the door for them. My daughter also has a disability, so I'm very into the school accessibility. But
Mhm.
Turkey Hill is
That is
very
the law.
Yeah.
limited.
Yeah, and it's the law. Right, we seem in agreement on those. Banger. Ooh, now let's see if we agree or disagree with low, critical, and not important. Rami, if I'm moving at I'm not watching my clock,
No,
watch
this
for
is-
pace, so if the pace isn't good, let me know. Improve the farmer's market that doesn't exist this year.
It
does seem to make it less important.
That happened this summer,
Mhm.
that worked really well, I would say.
I'm looking for disagreement, like, if you're like, I disagree, that's important to hear, because otherwise,
Okay, here we go.
okay.
All right, well, I'm just saying, I don't know. I have one experience in 40 years with a farmer's market in Lunenburg, okay? On one Sunday afternoon, I think I went up there and said, this ain't much, and said, why bother coming back?
I also disagree, I think we are a farming community, why wouldn't we have a farmer's market?
Well, somebody else brought it up at the last meeting, though, usually a farmer's market's for people in the city, for
True.
city dwellers, because we always
Sure.
have access to it.
But
And
it's
We've had
not like-
a lot of trouble getting people to sign up to come sell their wares at the farmers.
And that's, my understanding is that's in part because the people aren't necessarily buying there at the volume.
We interviewed some of the local farmers, and they said it just wasn't, it didn't pencil out.
Now, I
Well,
know
a lot
that-
of them have their own roadside stands or,
Mhm.
yeah, so.
Well,
And-
even if you go to Leominster on a Saturday and you look in Monument Square, or Monument Park, whatever they're calling it, since they spent $1 zillion. I mean, I can count on my fingers how many vendors are there from farmers,
Mhm.
okay? And you're talking about a city with over 40,000 people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like people like farmers markets, but improving hours right now might not be.
Right.
Got it. Great. Develop a town green in the town center. Medium time, medium cost. Defining a little bit, town green's a public space, typically with a grassy lawn, places to sit and trees. It would require multiple stakeholders, surveys, public meetings. And you'd have to find funding sources, so it's,
I put that in that pile because I think it's basically in conflict with the space with the gazebo that exists already.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, which way we're facing, this field here at Passios could do with some kind of work to make it a better community green space,
Yeah.
but.
I actually, it's not my idea, but I think it's a very feasible idea.
Yeah.
To make a town green just behind the library, between the,
Mhm.
not impeding on vehicular access to the senior center, which is crucial. It's already a closed fire lane in front of TC Passios. So what if it just becomes greener, still fire lane accessible? But you've got the schools on one side, you've got TC Passios, you've got the senior activity center, you've got the library. It's really the heart of the community.
And you've got some mystery that's gonna happen in Brooks House.
So what I'm gonna do to gauge us real quick is I'm gonna put us with thumbs down is definitely not important, not critical. Thumbs up is definitely very important, very critical. And that's kind of a nice analog range, right? Where do we fall on this one? Because I'm hearing different kinds of statements from people. Are we, this is super important? No, this isn't important or critical. Where are we sitting right there? If you don't,
Ron is making it sound like it's easier than we might think, because
Right.
we kind of already have the space
And
available.
even where the gazebo is, if that's a desire, it's possible to do with relatively little, without removing the gazebo. You can still have a there. The moment, there's not much reason to go there, and it's not safe
That's
to
the,
get
yeah, I was
there.
gonna say,
Yeah.
like,
So-
there's no really easy access to
Mhm.
parking right there, it's a main
Mhm.
road to walk through.
so I just want to kind of gauge where we are because I hear a lot of good discussion that doesn't directly point to a location. So to kind of give us an idea where people are, this doesn't have to end the talk. Can we just get an idea where people are on the?
I think for me, bump it up in importance a bit, but not necessarily change its
Critical,
criticalness.
yeah.
Right.
I
Because we
agree.
have the spaces available, it
Yeah.
would just be kind of moving forward to
Yeah.
make it better.
So we're thinking. I'm
Let's
hearing
find
this.
a nonprofit to do that mission.
Hey, anything NGOs can do. So I'm hearing. I don't want to put it on that pile, but I'm hearing maybe more important, but not
Critical.
time sensitive. Develop a community garden. Medium time, medium cost.
Or a farming community.
Yeah,
We
yeah, yeah.
are, but we do have enough people that live in apartments. We've got the entire down by Wallem Lake, and we do have people that aren't in
Acres.
that can't necessarily have their own gardens. I personally am a big fan of public gardens, so it is more important to me personally.
Having managed a community garden, I am less of a fan than I was before I managed a community garden.
I do think if it was something that was maybe located near the school somehow, it would be a great opportunity for students as well to kind of.
There is one in here on the schools. There's two. One is developing community gardens for the schools, and the other is
Yeah.
opening up the
Greenhouse.
greenhouse. Thank you.
Yeah. I do
To
think that's not used
Yeah.
a lot, so, as much as it could be.
I'm not hearing a ton of support for moving this, so I was gonna leave it in the corner.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Encourage year-round programming. So low time, low cost, but year-round programming means a place will be programmed for use throughout the entire year. Putting on regular events over an entire year requires significant time from town staff. So I think this is in part things like the bonfire and everything else, and that's something that, again, nonprofits, community groups could take on who aren't in government. I know they've had interest. I know that they've had some real challenges with that. To me, this is very important, somewhat important, like we'll survive without it, but
Sounds like a job for the Parks and Rec Department. Then they can stay away from the waterfront area.
They do have a lot more Parks and Rec, activities going year round now,
yeah.
for every season. I guess I'll leave that.
So do we like this in that corner? Are we thinking of shifting it?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, cool. Develop options for a green space at 30 School Street, the old primary school site. Medium time, high cost. There was a plan for that, got voted down at town meeting for kind of a surprise vote down at town meeting that people weren't, to my understanding, weren't expecting, but that's New England government. Other uses for the site that have been discussed
Right,
have
it's thinking better
included
uses.
housing, have included parking that I've heard in public meetings. For, our downtown doesn't really have enough parking to support it well. And if you're looking to open a business downtown, that can get even trickier because we do have, due to prior safety concerns in the town, due to flagrantly unsafe situations in the town with parking previously, our current parking restrictions are on the more conservative side to try to protect safety. On the other hand, that can make it harder for a business to, yeah. I'm not hearing this is the wrong place for it, all things considered.
I'm gonna go back to what we just talked about the other spaces that are
Yeah.
available for green space.
Allow people to purchase land and have a temporary dwelling unit on site while building their home.
Oh, I thought I put that in that pile.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
That's fine.
yeah, that's a neutral,
I was
that's a.
neutral with
Yeah.
that one, that's why I passed it on, because I wasn't quite sure where I
yeah.
leave with it.
I mean, I don't see why not.
I don't see why not. Part of me hates to make building homes easier. Like, I hate to say that, like, well, let me rephrase. No, let me rephrase, because I said those words and that's not what I mean. I feel like the kinds of homes you get from this are going to be large single families, and I don't know that we need more large single families.
Sure.
I feel like that this doesn't match that need, but I'm wicked putting on a planning hat with that one, right? And I could be wrong.
You know, I drove by a house that was like that probably for 8 months on Goodman Street.
Mhm.
And it was like, well, I don't see a lot of trash hanging around the yard, you know, while they're under construction, and the people needed a place to live.
Mhm. So where do we want this one? We comfy with it? Do we want to move it?
Stay where it is.
All right. Encouraging building townhouses to create a more walkable community. Low time, low cost. I want to check this quickly because I don't see how those two go together directly. New zoning regulations and incentives encourage developers to build smaller, compact structures like townhouses. These structures may work well in specific areas like the town center or Whalum. So really, they say townhouses, smaller, more dense, encouraging small, more compact, likely more dense development in specific locations.
Which would assume to our previous conversation would also require reducing the minimum lot size.
I would,
Increasing the number of units per.
right now,
Yeah,
you can,
okay.
so right now you can build a duplex by right.
Okay.
Maybe you could build a triplex by right. I would also argue something like cluster development would get in the direction of this, while not necessarily, there's ways to get creative about allowing more dense, more affordable housing without sacrificing, actually even while potentially doing less sacrifice of our conservation land and everything else over time. Do we feel this is low? Do we feel it's more important?
Well, I mean, I just feel like we're putting the cart before the horse. I feel like there's like all these other, death and before we think about that.
Mm.
That's just like my thought. So it's, so where to put it, it's,
Yeah. To me, this is super mission critical, like versions of this, maybe not this exactly, but as we try to think of how to make housing that's affordable, because affordable housing is a proper noun, right? Housing that's, because we're pretty good on affordable housing. We're really bad at housing that people can afford.
And is accessible
And, yeah.
to the village center.
But not hearing a lot of support for that, and that's fine. use town-owned, and that's fair, that's about walkability too. Use town-owned land to develop a business incubator. High time, high cost. Town land can be dedicated to the development of new businesses. Support can take the form of reduced rent in prime commercial locations, shared facilities, and financial support. I needed that one, because I don't know what a business incubator is by definition. Are we comfy with that at high cost, high time as lower priority?
Yeah, but actually, there's a lower, not a high cost, not a high time opportunity with the Brooks House. All right, minimal investment to convert that to a.
Yeah,
to
for a business
retail.
incubator, I think, Eric, you need a much larger scale.
Oh, yeah. if you
Even in
want-
a town
if you
like
wanna get some
Lunenburg.
kind of, yeah, outside.
Brooks House is
Yeah.
really a
Yeah.
single family, yeah.
Yeah, I will say, sitting on the capital planning committee, the work needed on Brooks House is not gonna meet our definition of low, and I would be surprised if it meets our definition of medium investment.
Okay.
Looking at the number of things with, at least 5 digits that have to be done, and that's a laundry list.
Everything's well below code.
Advertised spaces available for sale or lease. Low time, low cost.
Is
Yeah.
that just like having a town
Town realtor.
billboard?
Yeah.
Online resources, events, pamphlet distribution, specifically for, hey, this space is available, come bring your business here. And so that's not said as much in the front, that's more detailed on the back.
Yeah.
I can stay where it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what realtors do.
That,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's not our job.
Yeah, no, we've got people who can,
I mean, there are communities that really want specific businesses and have a real issue with vacancy and feel the need to prioritize kind of
Yeah.
reaching out to the larger business world. If that's not an issue here, that.
We don't have grants, we don't have incentives that
I'm
we would.
about to say,
so let me
Really
push,
lots of
let me
space.
push back differently. Remy, you're also an expert here. So I'm gonna ask the question, is that your way of saying, without saying that maybe that's something that we want to consider more strongly? Because we're kind of dismissing it out of hand.
Right.
And is this you saying, I know you're thinking that, but there could be some real benefit here?
Well, I
Because-
mean,
For our town.
If our, yeah,
Right, right, right.
no, I mean, you have wanted some specific businesses in the village, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like you want, there've been over the years, we've heard different, we want a cafe, a bakery,
Mhm.
other things. That would require targeting, you know, specific, that, the way I read that one, it's much more open-ended. So
Mm.
it's just, you know, hey, we have these vacancies. And I don't get the sense that you have a lot of vacancies.
Yeah, because we
No.
don't really have
But
any.
we don't have a lot of.
We don't have a lot of vacancies, and
Yeah.
I will say the interest, because of the discussions, I don't know if because of, but like along with those discussions, I know there are multiple individuals who have expressed interest in the idea, what if I opened a cafe in the
Mhm.
village center? And the answer to those individuals have come to the conclusion that it doesn't seem to be economically feasible for them to do the work needed to turn the space into what would meet code for
Food
a
service.
cafe, yeah, for food service.
And you already have a food service business right next door.
Mm.
I just wanna say it's 7:47.
Ooh,
I think there's a hard stop at this part of the space, right?
at
So-
8:00,
At
yes.
8:00.
We can transition to the community room at any point, we've cleared that, because this area shuts down.
So it's in your hands. I'm happy to, we have other recommendations we can go through with you, or I can pick out one in particular that I think would be interesting to get some feedback on. We could have a quick discussion about those. I leave it in, we're happy to be here.
I'm gonna turn to the members here who don't have their voices amplified to the nth degree. Would you like us to press forward? We can go to the community room. We can hear a few things from Remy that seem super important. How do we wanna handle this?
I vote for letting the pro do his thing.
I agree,
Okay.
I'm comfy with that.
yeah.
So which
We
one is
we-
that?
we would enjoy, yeah. You're saying dudes, dudettes,
Okay.
non-gender
Light the fire.
doodleinos, there's things we need here.
Well, I mean, I think the fuzziest category is the resilient infrastructure. It would be interesting to get some feedback on that group in particular. So I'll read them out, if that's all right. And we can do the same thing, 12 o'clock here, 6 o'clock there, and somewhere in the middle, we'll figure it out. Prioritize sidewalks and pedestrian infrastructure in commercial areas.
Yeah,
In commercial areas, yeah.
yeah,
sure.
let them bring in those high granite curbs, and
There's-
the towing companies will love them.
I should probably add you to say it's got a lot of dollar signs
Yeah,
and some time.
but you get fed money.
I don't think any of these other things can work without that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I just want full disclosure, that's all.
Yeah,
Sure,
I mean, but
somewhat
that's sort of like
important.
our
So-
first high ticket
somewhat
item that
important,
we've
somewhat
had here. I think
critical.
we're doing
That is
pretty good.
true.
that's fair.
Make the town center more walkable, related.
It's the same,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
We're dying to get out of our cars. Like, seriously.
This one is, got some interesting responses in the public survey. Add bicycle infrastructure to high-density housing areas. From high-density housing areas to the town center and vice versa.
So what is it?
So I did not do a good job of reading that, but create bicycle lanes from, let's say, Whalum, for example, to the town center. So
There's,
dense residential areas to commercial areas.
there's a problem with that one, and it's the same one that was, it said like working with MassDOT to put sidewalks in places. MassDOT's requirements for putting sidewalks in are kind of prohibitive, because if they want to do it, they have a complete road system, so they want sidewalks on both sides, bike lanes on both sides, and 2 lanes of traffic.
It's called complete streets.
Yeah, complete streets, sorry, that's what it
It's a
was.
standard, yeah.
And that is really prohibitive in a lot of the spaces we
is.
have because of how much
Because of the
additional area
right
we
of
need to
way.
take up.
And because a lot of our main thoroughfares are state roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would ask, have you seen this done successfully in communities similar to Lunenburg?
It's definitely been widespread and implemented,
It's
whether it's utilized or
It's a whole nother
the
question.
benefits. yeah.
So that was part of my definition of successfully, that gets a lot of use in a more distributed.
There is money available for it, and it's easy money to get.
Ooh,
Easier than other.
I understand.
Whether is there a critical demand for it at this moment is a open question. I would suspect not a lot. But if it exists and there's a new, 5-10 years from now, a generation gets used to using it, it's there for them to use.
In the
So
Netherlands, they hit it out of the
That's-
park.
That's
but
just, yeah.
Here, it's
like-
quite different.
It's a
yeah.
totally different mindset. And I've lived in Boston area for the better part of the last, 25 years. Biking 25 years ago in Boston, you were putting your life in your own hands. You still are. But there's a lot more, it's a lot safer than it was because of the investment. Again, it's a very different place. It's not, the countryside, but things have changed in essentially a generation.
What do we think?
Well, I'm all for it. I'm just gonna say that. I am all for
Great.
like sidewalks and trying to make things, bike lanes and make things more. It's the environmentalist in me that's
Mhm.
speaking that, so.
I
That's
can't
cars.
see the affordability issue there. All right, I mean, you're gonna compress these roads number one, you're gonna spend a whole lot of money. I mean, if you wanna do it, come up with a way that you can get the street front homeowners to give up 6 feet of land.
Oh,
So
if you go to the DOT, they can just take it.
So we're hearing, I might encourage, it sounds like this discussion might hinge upon cost. So this is one of those that, if we can get grants, don't sound so bad.
Yeah.
If we can't get grants,
Yeah.
Right in the middle there? Is that safe?
I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with that.
I think in the interest of time, those are the ones, solar canopies, on incentivizing solar canopies on large parking lots, I don't know.
We don't have any large park.
You don't really, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
really an issue for you.
Bricksmore,
Um,
Hannaford, Walmart.
Yeah.
yeah.
We have lots of trees.
All right.
So that's, I think, traffic calming measures to improve pedestrian safety. Traffic calming would focus on key areas of roads. It involves components like speed bumps, which reduce speeding, increase pedestrian and traffic safety. MassDOT programs and grants can provide funding for projects that promote pedestrian and bicycle safety, accessibility, and comfort. So your crosswalks, for example, as I imagine a great place would be right at the main intersection, right? Where you have slightly more robust system of slowing cars down as they're approaching that main intersection, making it easier for folks to walk across the street. It's that sort of thing.
American speed bumps are too narrow.
There are designs, I've encountered this near my brother's house in rural Pennsylvania. So like, more rural than we are here in Lunenburg. And there's ways of doing this without the speed bump. It's more of a speed,
They call
Yeah.
them speed tables.
like, don't get me wrong, they let me know when I'm going too
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. But like the sleeping policeman in England.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the speed tables, is that what? so
Speed
they're-
tables.
They're wider, they're
About
longer,
10
they're not
feet
boom, boom.
long,
Right.
and- yeah.
And you're seeing more and more of those in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It's- So, Matt?
I
Go ahead.
I think it's critical, because I just think about Whalum Lake in the summer, and all the little kids, and the
Yeah,
mom, because
yeah,
I'm a mom with the used to be with the toddler, and people fly around that corner, my husband does. So like, I think that's, I just would be very critical,
So, in this area,
yeah. I'm
So-
fine, like, I'm
Yeah.
finer with the,
Wasn't there a question about increasing the parking and
Yes.
access to the town beach?
Yep, that was on the survey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
another one that's important.
Looking how far we got tonight, the limited group, I'm wondering if, I feel like I have a good handle on how this works. I'm wondering if we can run this exercise one or more times at some more public meetings to gather more input. And then that is all info that can be filtered back
that'd be great.
as well. I mean, this is kind of my professional jam.
Sure. Is that okay with you?
I think you gotta get a lot of public officials involved.
To not do.
I care
To have it
less
done?
about those of us who already get to be heard, and I care a lot more about the people planning board and select board, if we want to talk, we get to talk.
So you're talking about bringing this to the senior center, let's say?
Yeah, bring it to the senior center,
Kind of
bring
a
it to,
mobile-
yeah.
Be careful, you're gonna get probably a lot more loudmouth octogenarians like me.
Good, we need to hear from loudmouth octogenarians.
Rami, were you?
Years and years of wisdom.
So,
Like,
we-
what happens
We're
now
gonna
with this?
photograph
Okay.
this and document this particular iteration. We'll go into the room to do it, because we're
Okay.
getting kicked out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And